On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to Life Science Success Podcast. My name is Don Davis. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. Before we get into the interview today, I just wanted to quickly mention that I have started a digital media marketing company. I have an excellent team that's over there running it. They're taking a look at different websites in our industry and helping clients overall improve their social media exposure as well as just improve their web presence in general. So today on the podcast, my guest is Tom DeStefano. Tom is currently the Executive Vice President of the Specialty Division at Camber Specialty. He's a pharmaceutical executive with vast experience in generic brands and specialty products. Related experience includes sales and marketing, business development, and trade relations and national accounts management. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Don. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much. Would you just take a moment and introduce yourself a little bit to our audience?
Sure. Well, again, my name is Tom DeStefano. I have been in the pharma business for 31 years. I started out as a relatively young man who had a little bit of outside sales experience. I had a friend who was in the pharma business. Thought it would be a good fit for me. I was doing engineering sales at the time, 1 or 2 years out of college. I applied to many pharma companies, and at the time, field forces that actually called on doctors, as we refer to, carrying the bag, carrying samples, detailing doctors, which was a very large segment of how pharma companies marketed. I applied for many jobs. I was fortunate enough to get a position with a company based out of San Diego called Dura Pharmaceuticals. They were a small upstart company that focused on prescription brands, respiratory, allergy type products, asthma. I was very fortunate that I was hired as a sales representative to cover a very important market, New York City and northern New Jersey. And that's a tremendous territory. But I was calling on specialists, allergists, pulmonologists. And all I really wanted to do was be successful. My goal was to make president of the club. I heard they had these great trips to Hawaii and all these perks. And I was a young man, and I was like, well, I'm gonna be in president's club. So sure enough, I made rookie of the quarter my first year. And about 3 months after that, I became a regional sales manager for Dura, and I covered Maine to Florida. And I was 25 years old. Quite honestly, I didn't know too much, but I learned along the way. I hired and trained about 40 people in between all the areas between Maine and Florida. I achieved a high level of success at that company. The company eventually went public. It became a very successful company that was bought out by a company called King Pharmaceuticals. And then at that point, I wanted to expand my experience. My previous boss, who I'd worked with, was in the generic business. It was with a company called Eon Labs. Eon Labs was a New York City-based generic company, not too far from JFK Airport. And they were a small company that was doing about $5 million a year and sinking. They were involved in a company that previously in the building was involved in some FDA scandals. The FDA padlocked them, and new ownership came in and started up Eon Lab, German owner. And we took Eon from $5 million to the time I left 7 years later to $700 million. It was me and about 3 other people were on that commercial team. At that point, Sandoz, which was a major generic company, they bought out Eon for believe it was $2.5 billion. So
Well,
that $5 million investment to $2.5 billion, I'm saying, they did pretty well. I saw an opportunity for me to align myself with a couple of my colleagues to start my own company, which I did. I had that company for 13 years, very successful. What we did is we had products that were made through a CMO, contract manufacturing organization. So we outsourced everything, all of our product development, manufacturing, everything, including legal, HR. And we were in New Jersey at the time. And we were like, well, we could do this anywhere. Well, why don't we just set up an office in Florida? We did. At that point, I decided to saw an opportunity where I could divest myself from my interest in the company. A lot of times when you have partners, you don't always see eye to eye. And, I just made that decision, to part ways with them and divest my interests. And I did some consulting along the way. I consulted for many startup companies internationally. Did that for a couple of years. Quite honestly, it was a little difficult for me to keep taking international flights and be on such a rigorous schedule. I had an opportunity to start up another company with an Indian organization. That company was looking to start a front end. They were big API producer. That company was based out of Hyderabad, India. Company is called MSN Labs. They wanted to start a finished dose company, which I started in the U.S. with the president of that company. In 3 years, we went from 0 to 100 million in net sales. I was very proud of that because the company started from a zero base in a highly competitive market, mostly in oral solids. Then I was fortunate enough to get involved in the specialty side of the business, including institutional products, injectables, some oral solid oncology products. I realized tremendous success working with all of the major wholesalers, Bergen, Cardinal, McKesson. I started working with the major oncology centers, including Memorial Sloan Kettering, MD Anderson out of Texas. I was quite happy in that role. The gentleman who kind of connected me with my previous company is now my current boss. And that is, I work for Camber Pharmaceuticals. He recruited me to start up a new division, Camber Specialty. This is a tremendous organization. Again, there are a lot of similarities from this role to my previous role. Camber is very much big in the API space, active pharmaceutical ingredients, which is for the lack of a better word, what makes the product work. There are a lot of intermediates. There are the ingredients that keep tablets together, but the API is the actual part that makes the molecule work. They're a powerhouse in the API business. They have been the company Camber has been in business for 15 years, but my parent company, Hetero, also based out of Hyderabad in India, has been in business for 30 years. They're a major company, one of the largest companies in scale in the whole pharmaceutical industry, including brands and generics. We're very much a brick and mortar company. We have 38 manufacturing sites throughout the world for API as well as finished dosage. The big push in generics is companies that refer to themselves as being vertically integrated. It's a term that many companies use outside of the pharmaceutical industry. And being vertically integrated means within your own manufacturing efficiencies and capacities, you keep everything in your own company, so to speak. We make our own API. We make our own finished dosage, which include tablets and capsules, solutions, suppositories. That's on the Camber Pharmaceutical side. On Camber Specialty side, which is the new division, which I was recruited for and have been here for a year, That is the institutional products. Those are the injectables. That's going to be the oral solid oncology product. I'm going to be launching 18 products this year, which is tremendous. On the Camber pharmaceutical side, we're a very well-known entity. We have 126 products, 384 SKUs. It's a tremendous company doing business with all the major chains, Rite Aid, Walgreens, CVS, all the major wholesalers, mail order companies. We also have other divisions of the company, Camber Consumer Care, which is RX to OTC products. We also have a division that covers government sales, XL Care. And now I am, again, Camber Specialty, the newest division for institutional products, mostly injectables, but we will be getting into the IV bag business, ophthalmics, sterile respiratory products, again, oral solid oncology products. It's also pre-filled syringes and vials for injection. It's such an exciting period in my life. Being in the industry for as long as I am, I can truly say this organization is by far the greatest one I've ever worked for. And it's not just because of our product line and the research and development that we do. We have over 1,000 PharmD level scientists working in parallel, developing the API, the active pharmaceutical ingredient, and the finished dosage. They work together to submit what's called a DMF. A DMF is what in the US with the FDA is an approval process you go for API. An ANDA, abbreviated new drug application, is the approval you get for a generic. When a brand comes off patent, you have to have an approved ANDA to launch a product. So right now, we're one of the leaders in the US for the DMFs, that's drug master files for API. And in the past 3 years, we are leading the generic industry here in the US with the number of approved ANDAs, approved finished dose generics. The company, for many reasons, is a tremendous one. And I just came back from Hyderabad, India. I spent a week there, and it was a great trip. Got to meet, this was my third time meeting the chairman, Dr. Partha Reddy, and his son, which is the heir apparent to the organization, Dr. Vamsi Reddy. The Reddy family, they're an amazing family, and they're two very special individuals. They run an organization that has 27,000 associates. We have 38 manufacturing sites throughout the world. We're doing business in 140 markets throughout the world.
Yeah, Dr. Reddy's lab is well known in the industry as well. So yeah.
The interesting thing about it is Dr. Reddy's is not the same family as Dr. Partha Reddy and Dr. Vamsi Reddy. Reddy is a very common name. Reddy
Very
and
good.
Patel,
Yeah.
two very common names, but Hetero and Camber are separately owned by a separate Reddy family.
It's separate
That makes
Reddy.
sense.
There you go. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you
For many
clarified
years.
that because I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, I know it was definitely not something that was clear to me. So thank you for clarifying.
No, but coincidentally enough, the chairman of our company, Dr. Partha Reddy, worked for Dr. Reddy's. He was not related to the Dr. Reddy's family, but he was their chief formulator for API. He left the company 30 years ago, Dr. Reddy's, to branch out to start Hetero, Blessing, the chairman of Dr. Reddy's Labs. And that's when he started Hetero as with very humble roots. He started the company and he became very successful. He's considered one of the foremost organic chemistry scientists in all of India. And he has built in 30 years one of the leading generic companies in the world. And, what I got to experience in the past week is to really sit one-on-one with their management team, the ownership, and learn what they're coming from and how do they approach life what is their belief on the industry, and what are they trying to accomplish? The first thing that I could say is that this is not a business that they're looking for personal gain from. They've been very fortunate through their own hard work and their own strategic moves to become financially well off. What they're trying to do now is make a successful company that benefits first their own country in India, and also produce products that bring great value to the market. But on top of that, I had an opportunity to visit a hospital that's going to be opening up in November of this year, a 2,000 bed hospital in Hyderabad that's going to be multifaceted. Their belief is they wanted to start a hospital that from life, OBGYN to geriatric care under one roof, but also have a big focus on oncology care. This facility is tremendous. What they're going to do, there's 2,000 beds, as I indicated. 50% of their patient population is going to be dedicated to imaging care. Unfortunately, in India, many times when you're diagnosed with cancer, it's not good. You know, we here in the US, we have, for the most part, those of us who work and are fortunate to have healthcare insurance, we have a fighting chance against cancer. In India, it's very difficult to get the kind of care from a physician level, from a pharmaceutical level. Many of these patients just don't have the means to do that. So to see this kind of endeavor really left me extremely inspired. I believe that this is an organization that is going to be here for the many decades to come. Again, it's not about building up a company and selling it. This is about having an organization that's going to be continue to be family owned, and it is the largest privately held pharmaceutical company in India. And the interesting thing about generics is that many people don't know 80%, approximately 80% of all generics sold in the United States, prescribed in the United States, come from India. So this is a market where patients might not realize it, but if they're on continual meds and they're generic, most likely are from India. And if they're on a product, say like a statin to reduce cholesterol, my company manufactures all the major statins. So we manufacture products in all drug categories, including cardiovascular, including oncology, diabetes. It's really it's a phenomenal organization, but there's a lot more to come. We will be launching. Yes, please.
I was just going to ask, so what is the process? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit ago about all the products that you're going to launch this year. So whenever something comes off a patent, what sort of transpires that you have to do? I would assume that there's some level of validation that has to happen that says yes, this drug essentially is equivalent to what was coming from the previous pharmaceutical company. So what does that look like whenever you're getting ready to launch so many products? I mean, what, aside from the FDA filings, I would imagine that there's all this other work that has to.
Sure. And that's a good question. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. What happens is through the ANDA process, abbreviated new drug application. That's what an approved generic has to have from the FDA, an approval for an ANDA. A brand is called an NDA, new drug application. What has to happen is when a product is getting ready to come off patent, several years before, generic companies start working on the ANDA. And what they have to establish in many cases is called bioequivalence. Now, bioequivalence means and I might be surmising it and simplifying it, but for the lack of a better understanding, it can't, in a lab study and in vitro studies, meaning human testing, it cannot have the same level of effectiveness as the brand. And it basically has to have a similar outcome to the brand. So let's just say you develop a generic and it gets better results than the brand. Well, the FDA won't approve you as a generic. What you can do, you know, is pursue a brand on the product, but typically that doesn't happen. What we're trying to do as a generic company is to show we're not worse, we're not better, we're the same. This process takes approximately a good company like Camber can get an approval in 18 months, the whole ANDA process. Some companies, it may take up 2 to 3 years, and some companies never get the approval. This comes at a very high cost because in order to get your product approved, what you have to do is pay a fee to the government, which basically pays for the FDA to go through your approval process. This is called a GDUFA fee. This fee covers all of the products coming out of your one facility. And it's an annual bill that you pay once a year to the FDA. And what that does is this helped many years ago. The FDA had a much longer lead time in approving generics. So what they decided is if we can charge a fee, we can hire more lab people, increase our capacity to approve generics, and at that point, bring greater value to the market with a generic. For example, perfect example might be an oncology product. Some therapies, it may cost $20,000 to $30,000 a month for this kind of a therapy to treat cancer. By the time a generic comes out, if there's more than several companies manufacturing it, this can dramatically bring down the cost of the product. Because what happens to the generics is when the patent expires, the first company that files for the generic will get what's called an exclusivity period. It's called the paragraph 4 approval. The FDA wants to incentivize a company to produce this generic because it, again, brings great value to our healthcare system. And the largest purchaser of pharmaceuticals in the United States is the United States government, the VA in particular. So, the government really wants to incentivize a company to produce generics. And and what I always say is, I have many customers that I work with and Camber works with, but the number one customer that we have is the FDA. We have to products at the highest standards of CGMP. We have to ensure that we follow in the drug approval process all of the necessary steps to bring a product to market. This is something that Hetero, a parent company, again, has one of the greatest strengths, is bringing products to market. The best generic companies have deep pipelines for new products.
Sure.
Because what happens is with generics, the more companies come into a product, pricing goes down. So you have to have a deep pipeline. Your company has to keep investing, bringing your generics into the market. You need to specialize, get into institutional products. Again, Hetero and Camber are two very unique companies because we are vertically integrated with API and finished dosage forms. But the thing that makes our company very special as a vertically integrated company is that we are backward integrated with our API, our active pharmaceutical ingredients. There's a process by which for making API requires you to make key starting materials, which are referred to in the industry as KSMs. Uh, there might be steps from 1 to 8 to make an API that include these KSMs. Many of these KSMs are produced in places like China,
Hmm.
where a company mine might have to, they make the API, but in order to start making the API, in other words, the building blocks for the API, they have to go outside their manufacturing capacities to companies in China to make these KSMs. Hetero does not.
Hmm.
We make our own key starting materials. We make our own intermediates for API, the building blocks of API. This makes our organization very special. For a perfect example is this one product during COVID, this became a big issue. One key starting material for a commonly used drug went up 2,000%.
Wow.
It was a company out of China. Yeah. I mean, so as a manufacturer, what do you do? How do
Right.
you build that into your cost?
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, it was one of the
And
biggest things that I had heard overall during the pandemic was, a lot of people that had outsourced to different countries were also looking at, how do we bring more of this closer to home, more of it back in house for that same reason as well. So
yeah,
Tom,
and yeah,
go ahead. Yeah.
no, so
So, just in terms of the overall industry, where do you feel like the biggest opportunities are in your industry?
I think the greatest markets are still here in the U.S. We have an aging population that really on fixed incomes that really requires patients to take more generics. I think as products come off patent, generic companies continually need to be an important part of this healthcare supply chain. I think opportunities exist working with our wholesalers, with our chain drugstores to help distribute product. But on my side, Camber Specialty, it's working directly with the health systems. Uh, it's working directly with the oncology centers to bring the cost down on products, injectable products, institutional products that are heavily impacting the way hospitals operate. What we're finding right now is certain products that are necessary when you go to a hospital, like contrasting agents, products that are used during radiological exams, are in very short supply. The government puts out a list of products that have supply disruptions. These products are on short supply. I think as companies come to market, they're trying to focus on these products that are continually experiencing supply disruptions. And I think what Hetero does is with every approved ANDA, with every approved finished dosage form, we bring great value to the supply chain, whether we're by ourselves on a product or we have multiple competitors. Every time we come out with a product, we assure our customers who contract with us, we're going to supply because the contracts that we sign to work with big customers include what's called FTS, failure to supply. If we do not supply the product, we agree that they can purchase product from a competitor for time until that time we can bring the product back to market. We could lose a year's worth of profitability in 1 week if we're hit with failure to supply. So I would say for us, number one, the Hetero Camber organization is a regulatory driven company. Everything we do abides by the highest CGMP or manufacturing standards, and we comply with the FDA in all aspects. The second part that makes our company successful is we're a supply chain driven company. We cannot just go take on business. A customer calls us up and says, "Hey, we want product X." We can if you can start supplying us 30 days, we're going to go with your company. Our current supplier can't supply. Well, I can go back to my supply chain team and think, great, we got this great opportunity and we want to supply. But they do their own evaluation and say, we can't take it on for 90 days, 120 days. We might miss an opportunity, but we will not take on a commitment without knowing we can supply a product on time and full. That's part of what those are two reasons why Hetero and Camber are great, is a great organization. And leadership. We have the greatest commercial team in the industry. We have great reputations amongst all of our customers. We're a company with all the individuals, all the stakeholders who make commitments professionally and personally. And we're well respected in the industry. And even my current president of my current organization, Con Ostapachuk, somebody I've known for well over 25 years. He comes with a great reputation. And when we go to industry meetings, there's no secret. People come to us because not only are we a good company to work with, we're good people to work with. And that's why I'm so privileged to work where I do right.
Thank you for sharing that. So, Tom, there are 3 questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
I would say that might be a 3-part answer. My first inspiration is my wife, Natasha. I got married a little bit later in life, and I'm so glad that I waited. As beautiful as she is on the outside, beautiful soul as she is on the inside. She's an early childhood special teacher. Received a degree from the University of Cincinnati. She teaches 4 and 5-year-olds. Tremendous person. I don't know where I'd be without her today. So that's my greatest inspiration. And really, I would have to say, in line with that is my faith. I carry that very close to me in my heart. I believe in God. God has put me on a path to be successful. I think I couldn't be where I am without my faith. I'm fortunate that I've been guided internally. I have a moral compass that, I've made mistakes. Yeah, I've done things like everyone, but it always comes back to my faith and belief in God. And I think the third part is I'm inspired watching people around me do good things, quiet, no spotlight, doing things with integrity. Because again, integrity is that one thing that's defined by doing what's right when nobody sees you.
Yeah,
And when you see people like that in this world, that inspires me.
absolutely. I mean, it's always it's one of those things where you can always see when people routinely don't do things with integrity, and then you kind of question why overall would you do that to yourself? Because I mean, that's a badge now that you're going to carry forever. I mean, it's not something that's easy to lose after you sort of had people watch you do things that just shouldn't be done in this world. So thank you for sharing that. Tom, what concerns you?
Well, I would say the biggest issue that we have right now is what's going on in our country. I think there's a great, not just political divide, there's a moral divide. I grew up in a household. My father and my mother, God rest their soul, my dad just passed away in December at the age of 86. My mom passed away a few years prior to that. We grew up in a house where do the right thing, treat people equal. Growing up in New York City, I grew up with multi ethnicities. We looked past colored people's skin. We looked past religion. We looked past beliefs. We accepted people for who we are. I think that's our biggest problem. I think there's a breakdown in respect for people individually, which is very concerning. I think on a day-to-day basis, we should try to find, at some point, try to help someone. And it could be something from just holding open a door to maybe somebody who's having a rough day. Say, how are you? Maybe make somebody laugh. Tell them a joke. I don't know. Goof around a bit. Put people at ease. And, you know, I firmly believe what you put out is what you get back.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, I mean, there's so much of a multiplier that happens right now as well. I mean, you see things in the news where things escalate quickly. Um, it's just, it's so unfortunate right now that, oftentimes rather than giving people grace and saying, you know what, maybe somebody made a mistake, maybe somebody, didn't do things, the way that you think they should be done. But at the same time, we're all different and we're all individuals. We all sort of deserve that grace to, have some flexibility in life too. So yeah, I completely agree with you. And last question, Tom, what excites you?
My future. I think my greatest days are ahead of me and my wife. I think my personal career, been doing this a long time. Sometimes people ask me, what do you think? How much longer do you want to stick around? I tell you, I'll stay around as long as they want me. I got a fire in me to do bigger and better things. Excites me to be around my family. I have all of my family still in New York City. To see them was great. I have my family here in Florida. My in-laws live on Marco Island, not too far from where I live in Naples. My wife's family is in England. Love to travel to see them. Um, I like taking a big bite out of life, like it's a big apple, and taste all the good things about it. I want to have better work and life balance. I'm working on it. But that part's going to be fun. I'm going to be planning some vacation time this year. Maybe go to Italy and enjoy the good things in life, because life is very short. I had friends, people I knew that I lost on 9/11. That deeply shaped my life and my outlook on how I see things. And I don't want to let too much time pass without enjoying life, because that's what counts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tom DeStefano, I've messed your name up twice now. I had it
I
in
will
my
say,
mind.
it's laughing out.
DeStefano, Tom DeStefano. Thank you so much for being here on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here. And thanks a lot for sharing your story about Camber and everything that's going on there. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Don. Take care. For seeing you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it. And last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.